Hey guys, my name is Nova, this is Film Express, and I'm so excited to be here talking to you today about what is absolutely one of the year's best films, Todd Haynes' May December. Guys, I've always been a fan of Todd Haynes. I'll be clear right off the bat. He's a great director in my opinion. He's one of the more confident directors out there. He's a consistent, reliable director who makes films that I could categorize as Oscar bait, but in every sense of the word, they are strong, thematic, rewarding films geared towards a more mature audience. I'd also argue that he made one of the best LGBT films of all time with Carol, because Carol is a masterpiece and one of the century's best movies. Now, I had heard a little bit of the hype regarding May December starting to bubble up over the past month or two, and everybody's been talking about this movie. Everybody's been talking about the subject matter of this movie and the performances. So needless to say, I was very hyped and I was very curious about what this movie would be about and how this movie would affect me. I didn't expect this to be one of the year's best films, and in my opinion, Todd Haynes' best film so far. May December boasts what is arguably some of the best dialogue of the year, and it's one of the year's best examples on how to explore a theme with nuance, maturity, subtlety, and weight. And all of this is possible because of the powerful screenplay written by Sammy Burchell. She really knocked it out of the park with the screenplay. Now, script and directing kind of go hand in hand, and Haynes directs this with a confidence in himself that is unmatched and extremely refreshing. But what's more important here is that Haynes respects you as an audience, and he also respects the intelligence of modern day audiences. He knows that those who tune into the film and pay attention are going to pick up everything he's putting down. And you know what? It's just great to see all the positive reviews about this film on Letterboxd, because it seems like a lot of people are really loving this film. That same confidence that I mentioned is really the main attraction of his directing style here. He knows this is a complicated film with complicated ideas. He never really bothers with any finger wagging or any emotional manipulation. Everything is presented in a very matter-of-fact way, and it's going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to disturb you at some points. It's going to make you squirm in your seat, and it might even make you laugh over and over again. What I really love is that nothing is spoon-fed here. Answers are implied instead of shouted at you, and you can really tune into the moral depravity of everything you're seeing, just enough to make up your mind about how to feel about these characters and what the reality is of what we're seeing. There are so many themes being presented here, and like I said, it's a dense, layered, rich film. It's like an onion to me. It's like there are so many layers and you keep peeling back things to reveal more and more depth at the core of it all. There are themes of duality, of accountability, of trauma, of dependency, of manipulation. And speaking of that trauma, how that trauma can lead to a person being like a cocoon stuck in Arrested Development, and how that cocoon can only birth a butterfly with clipped wings. With all that, the film also talks about performance versus reality and the lengths that we go to in order to just understand what's hidden under the surface, but also in order to relate to people. That's already seems like a lot of themes, but then the film also really concerns itself with the stories that we tell ourselves in order to continue living, in order to make sense of our pain, in order to make sense of our world, and how these stories can be perceived by outside forces and how much that can impact our lives. That seems like a lot. It seems like I just listed off, 10 or so themes that this film explores, because it really does so in a very thoughtful and rewarding way. There is not a single line of dialogue that is out of place or that doesn't reinforce the themes. There might be some moments here where it's not as obvious, but everything has a razor sharp focus. To me, this is one of the most intense films of the year, and it's extremely heavy, extremely disturbing, extremely shocking, but it's also extremely hilarious, and it's sharp, and it's biting, and it's relevant. And I was surprised to see how much I laughed in this film. Within just the first 30 minutes, I laughed more in May December than I have with some of the more acclaimed comedies of the year, like No Hard Feelings or Joyride or Barbie. To me, this is comedy. Comedy is not just relying on physical gags or silly one-liners. Like, everything is relating to the characters, to their situations. Jokes are not made to be silly. They're made so that the audience can learn more about what they're watching. And to me, that's the best type of humor. It's the type of humor where I'm constantly engaging with the material. What I love about this film is that, again, there's so much going on at the thematic level, and Todd Haynes manages to direct that with a very, very metaphorical, allegorical style in which a lot of people will see homages and references to what is inarguably one of the best films of all time, Ingmar Bergman's Persona, which is also one of my favorite films of all time, hands down. Haynes manages to make many, many homages and reference throughout this film to Persona without ever kind of crossing the line into imitation or copycatting or pastiche. Instead, the themes of duality in May December really call for those slight homages to Persona to happen, but Haynes also manages to make those references while taking them further. I'm not going to say any movie is better than Persona because not many are, but the way Haynes directs these references into the film and kind of incorporates them in the most subtle ways, we're watching a master who appreciates the masterpiece that came before him and how that laid the groundwork on how to explore a theme like duality. And he knows that he can, in a modern setting, in a modern movie, take that a little bit further. And that's why I really respect Haynes and his direction here. There are a lot of other directors who make homages and references throughout their films. Damien Chazelle did in Babylon, all throughout Babylon. You know, the Daniels did last year with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Quentin Tarantino does it in all of his movies. They know we're going to recognize a shot or recognize a moment and think of that better film. When Haynes does it, it's very, very subtle. And again, like I said, it takes the ideas further. It's never like a shot for shot. It's never like you could put both shots side by side and directly know that the reference is there. But for those who've been in tune with the themes and those who are in tune with also Bergman's classic Persona, you're definitely going to notice it. The film is full of commentaries about our current world and about our current media's incessant need to kind of explore every traumatic theme and repackage it for modern audiences. That's really what the film's about. And the way Haynes explores this theme, especially with Natalie Portman's character, especially by the end of the film, to me it's a straight-on attack on the industry, and as well as straight-on attack on some of the films that have just recently come out in the past couple of years. Some of you may know one of the more popular reviews on this channel is my review of Andrew Dominik's Blonde from last year. The final scene in this movie reminded me exactly of how I felt when I watched Blonde. I found Blonde to be a repulsive film that crossed the line in every single department, and it ended up perpetuating that same abuse that we put Marilyn Monroe through. Now, May December is aware of that, where the movie like Blonde ended up putting an actress, Ana de Armas, basically through the same things that Marilyn Monroe went through, only for the film to have the intended effect. And I find that perpetuating the same issues that we're trying to avoid is the worst thing that we are guilty of in today's society, and Todd Haynes knows this, and May December is basically his answer to that, which is not really a cautionary tale, and it's never really finger wagging or taking a moralistic high ground. It's just showing you how deep this can get, how many lives can be affected by something like this. Again, I'm trying not to say too much about the story. You just really need to watch it, but I think you'll know what I mean when you're watching it. With all that being said, especially in regards to the ending, May December's ending is probably one of the best of the year. In fact, this year has had a lot of great films that knew how to end. And that's a really important thing for me, is when a film knows how to stick a landing. It basically shows that they had the foresight to think about their themes throughout the whole film. May December does this in spades. It's probably one of the best final scenes of the year, in my opinion. There's so many interesting creative decisions throughout this. Some people have almost described the tone of this film as camp. I find it to be like bold and confident and hilarious to a point where I can see where they see the camp elements, but Haynes has gone on record to say that that was not his intention. A lot of people will argue whether the final result and the intention, it even matters. You know, it's really about what you feel when you're watching it. So if you feel that the film was campy and it still was effective, then sure, I'm not going to argue and tell you that it wasn't. I personally didn't see camp. When I think camp, I think like cheap horror movies and stuff like that. But I know camp has a really, really multi-layered, rich history of meaning, so I don't want to ever reduce what camp can be. Todd Haynes is famously an LGBT director, and he's a queer director, so it wouldn't be too far off to believe that he would incorporate some camp elements in this film, because there were moments where the style is so elevated and the humor is so elevated and the themes are so prominent that it might be camp, you know, it really might be. Overall, all those creative decisions really enhance the story. There's a lot of interesting camera zooms and interesting framings, and everything's so up close and personal, you really feel like you're there. And ultimately, none of that would work if it wasn't for the three powerhouse performances by Julianne Moore, Natalie Portman, and Charles Melton. Those three performances are the main attraction here. Of course, Julianne Moore, she's always solid. She's always going to give a reliable, fantastic performance. And this is a solid one. She has a career of great performances, so I'm not going to say it's one of her best, but it's an incredibly solid one. Natalie Portman, on the other hand, she's electric here. She's completely transforming herself for the role and then throughout the film as well, which is a joy to behold. And anybody who's a fan of Natalie Portman, I think you're going to see a lot of genius in her performance. At least I did. The main thing to note here is Charles Melton. He is the star of this film. He's been winning awards for Best Supporting Actor already for the past little while at certain film festivals and certain award shows. I can fully understand why. There's been a lot of talk this year that the Best Supporting Actor nomination and win would go to Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. I think that at this point, Charles Melton is a shoo-in for Best Supporting Actor. This is one of the more powerful, vulnerable, honest performances I've ever seen. And a lot of his acting really reminded me of Heath Ledger in Brokeback Mountain. It was a very subdued performance. The pain was showing in the most subtle ways. The trauma was showing in the most subtle ways. Not to dance around the topic lately, but I do know some people who've been victims of the same thing that this character has been. To say that he nailed the performance is an understatement. Like, he tapped into something very, very special, and I just really hope that he gets the credit he deserves for this fantastic performance. He's a boy stripped of his innocence and childhood, and he perfectly embodies that. It's heartbreaking to see. There are some scenes in this film that are among the best scenes of the year. There's a scene with Charles Melton on the roof with his son where they're smoking a joint, which, I mean, it sounds very simple, but it is one of the most emotionally harrowing scenes I've seen in this year. There's a scene with Natalie Portman where she's describing what it means to perform and what it means to take on challenging roles, and the way she plays that role, it felt like a slice of real life. It reminded me of the way Cate Blanchett played Lydia Tarr last year, and Tarr was one of my favorite movies of last year. So I'll just say that things in this film are executed at a very high level of mastery. It takes a great director like Todd Haynes to pull something like this off. It's all very confident and it's all very refreshing. I urge you all to check out May December. It's up on Netflix now. It's one of the best films of the year. It's in my top 5 right now. My list is constantly changing with a lot of the movies I'm seeing now because we're in award season, so there's going to be a lot of great movies, but May December is holding very high right now. I would give it a 9 out of 10. It's one of those films where you might notice a lot more if you give it a second watch. It's one of those things that you're always going to be noticing new things. So I'm going to be watching it again this week, hopefully, and see if my rating goes up from a 9 out of 10 to maybe a 10 out of 10, because this is one of those films where I feel like it could earn that type of status and rating. So that's my review of May December, guys. I've been so excited to talk about this movie. It's a film I urge you all to go check as soon as possible. It's not an easy film. It's a very disturbing film. It's a very uncomfortable film, but it's one of the most mature, rewarding, incredible pieces of art of 2023. So guys, thank you all for watching. Please like and please subscribe. Please hit that notification bell as well. It really helps the channel a lot. Please drop some comments down below. Have you guys seen May December? What did you think? Let's talk about it, guys. My name's Nova. This is Film Express. Catch you guys later.